Hola clase, this is a lesson on ¿Qué hora es? Or telling time in Spanish. When telling time in Spanish, you can add or subtract the number of minutes to arrive at the time that you want. So when adding minutes, use the structure son las plus the number of hours, the word y, and then the number of minutes when adding time. So to say 3:20 in Spanish, I would say son las 3:20. When subtracting minutes, go up 1 hour, use that number as the hour, then use the word menos, and then the number of minutes. So for 4:55, it'd be son las 5 menos 5. We went up to cinco because we have to go up that hour because we're going to take the time back. So let's do a few of these. We can do these with adding or subtracting. For this one, let's do subtraction. So since we're not quite to the 1, we would decide that we would have to bump up to the 1 to use subtraction. So we would say es la 1 menos, and then we're going to subtract out 5, 10, 15 minutes, which in Spanish is 15. So es la 1 menos 15, or more commonly said, es la 1 menos 4. I could read this with adding time, and I would say son las 12:45. Either any of those ways would be correct. So here you can see we had son las 12:45, which is using the time that is shown. Then if you want to do the subtraction, you bump up from 12 to 1, and then use menos in either cuarto, which is a quarter of an hour, or 15, which is 15 minutes. Those are both the same. All right, let's try on this one. This one we're just going to use adding time. So we're not quite to the 4 yet. So our hour is going to be 3. So son las 3:4 stands for 20 minutes, so that would be 20. So the time on this one should be son las 3:20. Now for this one, I would like you to try it and try it with adding minutes and with subtracting minutes and see what you come up with. Now notice that for the adding minutes, we're not quite to the 5 yet. So that should help you get the hour. And then do your minutes with the 7, which is 35 minutes. So convert that all into Spanish. And then for the next answer, do subtracting time out. So we're going to bump up to the next hour, still have that 35 minutes. What'd you come up with? The correct answers would be son las 4:35 when we're adding the minutes, and son las 5:25 when we're subtracting out the minutes. Remember, we have to bump up from 4 to 5 and then take out the number of minutes it would take us to get to the 35 back from 5. All right, this is an interesting one. Both the hour and the minute hand are on the 12, but we don't know if it's AM or PM. So we can't really use mediodía or medianoche. Maybe we'll get to use those later. So let's just read this the way we see it. So since both the minute and the hour hand are on the 12, we would say son las 12. Son las 12. See? All right, what about this one? We're not to the 2 yet, and our minute is at the 15 mark. What do you think the answer to this one would be? The answer to this one is es la 1:15 or es la 1:15. Either are correct. Remember, cuarto means a quarter of an hour, and 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour. Now let's just focus on subtracting out time. Remember, we're going to use that structure of bumping up the hour, the word menos, and then subtracting out the number of minutes we need to get back to the original minutes we wanted. Sounds confusing, but you're doing a great job with it in class. So let's look at this one. It's 7:50 on the digital clock. So since we have to bump up an hour, we're going to take this up to 8. And then if we're at 8, how many minutes do we have to subtract out to get back to the 50 mark? Well, that would be 10. So this one should be son las 8:10. Let's see. Yes, we're correct. Son las 8:10. For this one, it's 4:45. So we're going to bump it up an hour. And then how many minutes will we need to subtract out to get back down to that 45 mark? Think this one through. Okay, what do you think the answer was? The answer should be son las 5 menos cuarto or son las 5 menos 15. Either correct. Remember, 15 is a quarter of an hour, which is cuarto in Espanol. All right, let's talk about using AM and PM in Spanish. So we talked the other day in class about AM being de la mañana and PM being de la noche. So we're going to tack those on to the end of our structures when we read these times. So for 3:20 a.m., we would say son las 3:20 de la mañana. Now, someone's going to say, oh, 3:20 in the morning is in the early morning, Senora Group. Couldn't we say de la madrugada? We could, but remember, I told you I want you focusing on de la mañana and de la noche. For this one, it's 2:35 p.m. So we can look at this a couple different ways. We can do son las 2:35 de la noche. And if we want to be extra fancy, we could use subtracting time and bump that up to 3. So son las 3:25 de la noche. Either would be correct. Here, I gave you son las 2:35 de la noche. That's a lot to have to work through. So if you just did it this way without subtracting the time out, that is perfectly fine. 12 p.m. I told you I thought this one might come up. What do you think? Is it mediodía or medianoche? Well, think about it. 12 p.m. is noon, and that's the middle of the day. I think this one will be mediodía. Yes, es mediodía. It is mediodía, the middle of the day. Good job. What about this one? If the last one was mediodía, then this should make sense to you that this one is going to be medianoche. Let's see if we're correct. Yes, es medianoche. It is the middle of the night. And that's where midnight falls, the middle of the night. 9:40 p.m. Let's use both adding minutes and subtracting minutes on this one. Let's do adding minutes first. Son las 9:40 de la noche. Sí, son las 9:40 de la noche. If we wanted to subtract those minutes out, we'd have to go from 9 up to 10. So we're going to say son las 10:20 de la noche. Because to get back to 40 after we're at 10, we're going to have to take out 20 minutes, which is 20. It's still going to say de la noche because it's PM. So remember, when adding minutes and telling time in Spanish, use the structure son las plus the number of hours, and then the word y, remember that's represented by the Y, the number of minutes when adding time. So 3:20 would be son las 3:20. And then remember, when subtracting minutes, go up by 1 hour, use that number as the hour, and then add the word menos, and then the number of minutes. So for 4:55, son las 5:05. We go up from the 4 to the 5, and then subtract out menos 5 minutos to get back to 4:55. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this lesson, and I know you are working really hard at telling time in Spanish. So now it's time to apply what you know and do the assignment that is linked in your template for your e-learning lesson today. Adios.